Peace, everyone. So today we're going to be talking about when the narcissistic person is not who you expect.
From beautiful seas to flourishing legacies.
There is this whole community, there is so much information, and the whole world seems to be talking about this idea of narcissism, right? If you watch a few videos, they'll tell you about certain qualities these people have, the dark eyes, the death stare, and certain things that they do, and they're robotic at times. And there are so many things. But I wanted to talk about something which I haven't heard much about, and I've experienced many times where I've been around a lot of people who have these qualities that I hear about, but they are never in the way that I hear about them. So most of the time we expect literally people maybe with red faces and horns on top of their head, and it's the obvious narcissist, the person who is self-entitled and all of these things. But what I have found over my own experiences with numerous narcissists over the years is that they are never how they sound, especially when we hear about them. Now, this is a really important video because this was something that I had a realization about through my own experiences of dealing and working and being in familial relationships with these people. It was honestly maddening at times. And the reason why it was maddening is because when you meet these people, there are certain behaviors that these people have, right? These people who, I'm not going to call them narcissistic, but they have these toxic traits. Shame you in public, for example. They talk about themselves all the time. They don't talk about themselves all the time. They talk about you all the time. They do things in a self-serving manner. They change the reality of a situation. They gaslight you, which is changing the reality of a situation. And they do so many other things. They guilt trip you and all of these things. But then the one thing which is the most confusing is that they are so human, right? These people who are sitting in front of you, who you have read and learned so much about, they are sitting in front of you, and what you see is this, not this like black and white paper cut version of a person. They are these three-dimensional, complicated beings with history of pain and with everything that they say, like with hobbies and interests and things, and they can have conversations with you so openly and all of these things, and it can get so confusing. So this video, I wanted to speak to that a little bit and how it can get confusing. And one of the things that happens is after the whole stage of being around someone who is narcissistic, and there are 3 stages of being around these people. Number 1 is the love bombing stage. The person makes you feel very good about yourself. It's almost like you are meant to be, right? Literally everything falls into place. They are like you, but they are not you. And there's so many things involved in that. And then the second stage is the devaluation stage. And this is where the hot and cold, positive and negative reinforcements are given to you. Again, it's like the control, right? They begin to give you less and less of what you became attached to in the love bombing stage. And then finally is the discard stage. And this can be a discard of them to you, saying bye. It could be aggressive or not aggressive, but you guys part ways in some way. You could be the one who discards the person. So anyway, those are the 3 stages, and you can find out so much information out there. But what isn't spoken about as much, and what I found in my own experiences when working and communicating and living around people who are narcissistic, is the stage after. And this is the stage where you become almost obsessed about learning what happened to you. This person was so deep. And I'm not talking about deep in the way that there's like good deep. It's just they were human, they're complex, they have so many nuances to them, right? There's just enough there that happens that creates confusion within you. Is this person a narcissist? Is this person not a narcissist? And you begin to try and understand them. And at first it makes sense. And then time goes, and then you get confused, and then you have these memories of all the good stuff that happened, and maybe they weren't a narcissist, they did so much good and they did all of this, and then you think, no, they were a narcissist, and then this obsession happens. And this is something that I didn't hear much about, and something that I experienced when I was around someone a while back. And what happened was I began to try to understand this person. I began to try and categorize them. And I realized, actually learning from other people who had been around people who were like this, or people who are toxic, that they went through the same pattern. And it was actually a very natural pattern. And that was my mind trying to understand and grasp a concept that I was unfamiliar with, because it was so out of my way of thinking that it didn't make sense to me that a person could be like this. And then what happened was there was a stuckness, right? So you go through the obsession, you're trying to understand this person, you're trying to understand how this could have happened to you, and then there's this stuckness that you can't move forward. And this is the stage, like I said, that people don't talk about after you've been in either an abusive relationship or you've been around someone who is very toxic. And what happens is you begin to see all of the symptoms of everything they do. And I don't know if you've researched this, but there's a lot of videos out there like the 4 signs of a covert narcissist. Watch out for this. And then there's other videos which talk about they are definitely a narcissist if they do this one thing. And then there's other videos, and there's so many like defining factors. But then as you begin to research deeper and deeper, and I began to research deeper and deeper, I was like, wait a minute, these symptoms are also like this, and this symptom is like this, and does it mean they have BPD? Does it mean they're bipolar? Does this mean they're avoidant? Does this mean it's this other thing? Is this? And it began to make me stuck, and it makes you stuck because you are stuck in this attempt to understand this 3D individual who doesn't fit the cookie cutter definition of what narcissism is. In fact, they fit many definitions, and then you stop moving on with your life because you're not giving yourself a chance to grieve. You're not giving yourself a chance to move on. You're not giving yourself a chance to accept yourself, and then you begin to lose interest in certain things, and then they've won all over again. And it is a game of win and lose with these people. And the greatest way that you can grow and you can move on and really, really push that narcissist away from you truly and be the best version of yourself is to be the best version of yourself and be even better, right? So that's how you deal with overcoming the narcissist, because the one thing that they want to see from you, or the toxic person, right, is you to keep being in that state that they trained you to be in that state of confusion, in that state of obsession with them, giving your energy to them. Because after a certain amount of time, the information that you're gaining is taking up space for things that you could be growing in, and it keeps you stuck, and it keeps you stuck, and it keeps you stuck. And there's a time that we are stuck, and there's a time that we have to grow and move on from being stuck and move on from that process. So now, I don't want to invalidate the idea that there are narcissists out there. And instead of trying to define a person being anything according to the DSM-5, right, is to understand that people are complicated. They don't always fit a definition that comes in a manual. And there are so many things that might confuse you about a situation. But the one thing that you can be sure about is how certain people and your interaction with them can create a very negative interaction within you. And a sign of this being around these kind of people is confusion in your sense of self, is a stuckness, is acquiescing, pleasing them, in from a place of obligation, of guilt, of all the negative things, rather than a place of fullness and goodness. And those are just some of the signs. There are so many other signs that a person is not healthy for you, and that is what it comes down to. It's not about the narcissist you expect. It's not about the narcissist you don't expect. It's not about a person who has BPD and borderline personality disorder. It's not about a person who has any other disorder. It's about that person being healthy or unhealthy for you. And that's really the question. Is this person making me a worse person? And is this person that making me the worst version of myself and stopping me from growing? And if the answer is yes, then it's time to set a boundary with that person. And if you're confused about whether that person is toxic or not toxic, or if it's you, then their reaction to the boundary that you set will be enough news and confirmation for you whether you can trust that person or not. So there you have it. So the question is not defining or categorizing or obsessing over these people. And there is a time we have to do that, because it's important to know what has happened to us. It's important to know how to heal from the way a person has treated us. But when we obsess over it for so long, it can get extremely confusing, and it can stop us from really moving forward and truly moving ahead in our lives as well. And ahead as in the best version of ourselves. So the question that we really ask is this person good for me or not good for me? And if they are good for you, then and you're doubting your own reaction with them, then it's time to work on yourself as well. Maybe you're both toxic for each other. But the one thing you can do with all people, before you build trust with them, if there is any reason that there is a lack of trust in the relationship, if there is a gut feeling within you, something telling you that something isn't right, then set a boundary. That's your one small thing. Set a boundary with the person and give it time, and do things on your terms and see how they react. And this is not to test them. This is to give yourself space and give yourself everything you need to breathe and be. And then what happens to happen is that the person will show themselves. And sometimes they'll show themselves to be not who you expected. Sometimes it's the narcissist that you never expected. And sometimes it is the most amazing friend that you could have never imagined having, because this person respected your boundaries and they thought about their actions, and they were even kinder to you, and they were gentle with you. So that's the way to just see it. So anyway, if you want to work on me one-on-one, I am offering coaching. I do a whole body coaching session, which means that I work with the body, the mind. Is a holistic approach. And there's also a free of my book from the woke writer, and it is the chapter on surrender. It gives you the 4 principles of surrender. It is free. And there is also a course if you want to level up a little bit in creating your legacy, in living a life of meaning and purpose. And it isn't just for writers, it's for anyone who wants to create a masterpiece. And that course is called The Woke Writer. And I hope that you have a beautiful and blessed day. Thank you so much for being here with me. Please share this video with anyone who you feel might benefit, and trust yourself and put that boundary down with people. And it is okay that you are going through a process of healing, but then there comes a time when it's time to grow and when it's time to move on from that grief. Have a beautiful and blessed day, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.